whistles and stuff in the background.
Hey, what up, my friends? This is Josh.
And Jeannie.
Ruben from
Hey,
East West
guys.
Healing. Today we are here for episode 12, I think it is, of or 11. I think it's 12 of Conscious Nutrition. Today's topic is how to influence your thyroid with sleep. And we are here every single Thursday at 12 p.m. Pacific Coast time to talk all things health, all things thyroid.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are. So we're playing with a new camera angle today. Of course, you can see some toys in the background. We're just kind of working with this as much as we can, you know.
The whole house is a playground.
The whole house is a playground. But before we get started, I want to take care of some logistics, as we always do, because I think it's really important. It's one thing to talk to you guys, but at the same time, we want people to feel like they have the support they need. So first things first, let me just kind of pull this up here. We offer a free or complimentary 15-minute consult. This is a chance for you to contact us, a chance for us to set up that free consult with you so we can answer some of your questions and tell you kind of our approach or philosophy regarding how we would kind of approach that. It's not to diagnose you or anything like that. It's just a chance for us to talk so you kind of have an idea of like, hey, maybe go check out this blog. Here's what we would do with you, or we recommend you go do this instead, right? So I'm going to put that link below. Please click on that in the comment section if you are interested. Secondly, one of the most important things is, you know, if you want to learn more about our approach, get a base foundational understanding of what we're doing and what we're talking about. You need to downregulate. You need to download our Restoration Thyroid audio series. We love it. It's free. We get great feedback on it, and it's kind of the foundation of what we do, and it's going to help you understand even maybe what's going on with you, but our approach in general. So I'm going to put that link below. Just click on it, Restoration Thyroid audio series. Subscribe now, and you're going to get a 7-part audio series on how to heal your metabolism, thyroid, adrenals, etc. with food. Lastly, I would say, I know I keep saying this, probably another really important thing is please don't forget to like our video. Please don't forget to share our video because, of course, you know people that could benefit from this. And thirdly, please comment in the video below. You can tell us what you've been doing. You can tell us where you're from, or post a question, or maybe a topic that you want us to talk about in future shows. That's the most important thing. So please don't forget to do that now. Post below, whether you're watching us now on the playback. Tell us what you want to hear us talk about.
And then if you guys have any questions that are not on sleep and just in general, you know, feel free to post those in the comments below as well. We'd be more than happy to answer them. We kind of played a little bit with the idea of doing a Q&A type of a call. So
don't get caught up with Greg Taper's post. Don't look at him. Anytime Greg Tape comments, I'm not even going to look. Because it makes you stop. Because you know it's just he's doing it to get you away from what you're saying. It's a game.
So anyway, yes, we were playing with the idea of Q&A. We're not sure we're there yet, but if you guys are interested, let us know. We'd be more than happy to again do that. Or if anything, you're more than welcome to post your questions in the comments below.
And I also think that the purpose of doing this was really not for us to talk the whole time. The purpose of us doing this is to really help answer questions. So don't be afraid to chime in and interrupt us. Don't be afraid to ask us questions because for us, that's why we want to do this. Yeah. All right? So let's kind of talk about what we're here to talk about. Sleep. And right now, well, actually, no, we slept really good last night. Harry's been a little snotty, let's just say. So, you know, for a couple nights, it was a little rough. And then when you get your sleep, it feels good.
Yeah, but I think we did go through a period of time where we did not get sleep. And you have to
like
understand
7
that
months.
Josh, I think it was a lot longer than that.
It felt like
and I, pre-Harrison, were 10-hour a night sleepers.
Yeah,
so we were
like 10 to 7. It was like, oh,
well, that's only 9.
Good.
We definitely, you know, were power sleepers and definitely feel the difference in not getting that type of sleep or having several months of not sleep. But I think this is a big issue for so many people.
Yeah.
At different severities, I guess you can say. So I guess, go ahead.
I know for me that when I don't sleep, I need to look at my food. I need to look at how I'm living,
It's the first
etc.
place to go.
And when I do sleep, for me, it's like my meter, right? When I sleep good, I feel good. Everything's in alignment. When I don't, something's off. I need to look at it.
Yeah.
And it's like everyone always talks about, like sleep, libido, mood, energy. Those are like the things you look at to say, okay, is what I'm doing working, or is something off? What do I need to reevaluate to make sure that I'm sleeping better? And I'd say the most common thing we hear from people, whether they have, hypothyroidism or not, is that they have sleep issues and they're tired all the time. And this is our society. We're going. We're going when we're at work. We're going. We're in our car, on our phone. We're talking to people. We're texting people. We're always connected and we on.
24/7.
But when are we ever off? And I asked someone this question the other day because they had a lot of anxiety, and they said, "Yeah, well, I watch TV, or I work out." That's not off. That's even more on. So you have to ask yourself, and we're not saying you have to sit under a tree with hemp pants, with Vibram shoes on, with a glass water bottle, and meditate. But if you choose to, you can. Awesome. But we're not saying you have to do that. What we're saying is, what do you do during the day to kind of shut down and recharge?
And here's why we're asking that question, and I'm sorry if you feel like I'm interrupting you, just kick me.
Boom!
Because I mean, maybe we do, maybe we don't, but there's such a direct relationship with what you're doing during the day to how you're sleeping at night, period. So if you can start, that's what we tell our clients with sleep issues. It's like, we're not going to focus on sleep right now. We're going to focus on everything you're doing prior to sleep, because that's essentially what's going to get you to sleep in the long run. So
it's the law of cause and effect, right? So if how you're living and how you're eating and how you're breathing affect how you're going to sleep, whether you're going to sleep good or bad. So when we have a sleep issue, everyone in our society focuses on sleep. What can I take? Medication. What can I take? Supplement. How do I fix the room? What blankets can I use? Am I comfortable? Is the temperature right? Is it dark? Is it light? I'm not saying those don't have an effect, but what I'm saying is we have to look at the cause. First. That is the most important thing. And that's what we're going to try to focus on today, because through our experience of working with people for a long time, this is what we've seen make the most influence on our metabolism, which helps us sleep, right?
I think everybody, for the most part, 99% of the people we've worked with that have had sleep issues no longer have sleep issues.
Yeah. So there was one question just to kind of... Hey, Darlene. Ian said, honest thoughts on the check system. Well, it's kind of like a little bit of a tangent there. You mean the check system of sleep, or just the check system in general? That's a really big question for me. All I can say...
I think there's a lot of great things to pull from there. I think anything in and of itself, without creating it in a way that works for you...
All I can say is I went through all their certs and I taught for them, and at that point in my life, it worked for me. Does it work for me now for the past 8 years? No. And that's really all I can say. If you want to talk about more individualized, I'd be willing to chat with you. So you can definitely private message me, and I'd definitely be willing to talk to you about like what it's about, etc., my experience.
But if you have something more specific to that question with respect to sleep or anything like that, definitely.
All right.
Awesome.
So the 4 things we want to talk about is the importance of food and food frequency in regards to influencing the thyroid and sleep. And we've talked about this probably 9,565,425.999 times, which is great because
it's the biggest piece.
It's the biggest piece of the puzzle, but it's the one piece that most people ignore or don't want to put in the work or not even aware of. Or they think they're going to do it, and then tomorrow they're like, well, I didn't sleep better, it doesn't work, right? It's not like that. What we're really trying to do is eat food through a frequency throughout the day that is individualized to us. So that takes time, number 1. Number 2, what we're really trying to do is reteach the body how to work appropriately, in a sense, because your autonomic nervous system has been up here for so long. You've been running a marathon every day physiologically, and you don't even know it. And that's why people have a hard time meditating, relaxing when they go to sleep, or even on vacation. So what we're trying to do is, through food and blood sugar, bring down that excitement, but also strengthen the part that allows this to go on and go off, right? And that takes time. We're really rewiring the system. We're working at a deep level here. But in a sense, really what we're doing, and I heard someone say this the other day, I forget where I heard it, but everyone says the autonomic nervous system is involuntary, right? We have no control over it. But in a sense, we do. We have control over it with two things. Our breath, right? How we breathe. Because you don't think about breathing, but you can think about breathing, right? And our food through blood sugar regulation. So what we do now is we take the autonomic nervous system, which is automatic, and we make it a manual. So now we can influence our brain, right? There's a guy, I think he's in Poland. Forget his name, it's long. I'll post it later. But he wrote a book I actually read, it's really good. And he says that breathing is a remote control to the brain. And that's true. Mm-hmm. So same thing with food, because how we breathe, our oxygen, which we'll talk about, is used in the cell, as well as sugar and thyroid hormone to produce energy. And that allows us to create that balance over time. So we can have control through how we're living throughout the day and how we're eating through blood sugar regulation.
And I think when we think about the autonomic nervous system, what I have found, not only for myself but with a lot of clients, is that the more important piece in being able to regulate it is understanding your own nervous system.
Yeah.
And really how wired it is, you know. So, I mean, Josh and I have two completely different nervous systems. So how we affect it is obviously going to be very different as well. It can be, there can be, share some similarities, but overall, what triggers me is very different than what triggers him. So I think as we begin to understand and create awareness around our own individual nervous systems and how they work and how they are responding to the environment, because essentially we are seeing our nervous system through our physiology, we have a much better grasp on how to meet that.
And that's a really good point, because I think, and that's with everything that we teach, is very personalized, because everyone takes this theory and then they try to apply it to them and say it didn't work. Well, you have to fine-tune it. You have to fine-tune it and fine-tune it to find the right rhythm, the right foods, the right frequency, the right ratios, you know, the right sleep patterns, the right rhythms that work for you. Everyone says you need, 6 to 8 hours of sleep per night, you know. But when you go to bed is all individualized to you, and when you get up is all individualized to you. I know that for me, it is challenging sometimes, but I definitely can get up at 6 or 6:30, but I definitely feel better if I wake up at 7 o'clock, you know what I mean? Or if I sleep through the night. But everyone's rhythm is going to be different. I have friends that can get up at 5 and go to bed at 11, you know, and they still feel good, right? But the question is, of course, at a metabolic level, is it actually working for them? So for us, the biggest thing is really look at, number one, the types of foods you're eating, right? Look at, are you eating foods that work for your body or against your body? Are you eating metabolic foods? And we use our food logs so we can see patterns, right? Data, so we can see those patterns and learn to create awareness around those patterns. We use body temperature and pulse, not just body temperature, to really get a gauge over time, not overnight, to say, am I regulating my blood sugar? Mm-hmm. Am I regulating, cellular health? Am I taking the burning off the adrenal system? And am I reteaching the liver to store glycogen, right? Yeah. So I think for a lot of people, it's really right now just looking at the food, right? Getting comfortable with the metabolic food. And then over time, start working with your frequency, meaning if you're eating 4 times a day, but you're eating every 5 hours and you're sleeping bad, that's a problem. And I'll just give one example and we can move on. So I have this new client who gets a lot of anxiety around, carbs, and I think just anxiety around general, but he was saying, I didn't sleep well and I had anxiety that day and my temp was low at night. I think it's the carbs. But when we look at the log and we get away from our thoughts, because when we're in a state of dis-ease or we don't feel good, we tend to perceive things a little differently. When we looked at his log and his patterns, that day he had 4 meals instead of 6 that he usually has. That's a new word. It's actually in the 2019 dictionary. And there was a huge gap between lunch and his last meal, and that's why his temp dropped, and that's why he didn't sleep good, right? So that consistency is key, but also building that awareness so you don't become so reactive and you can really respond and make the best moves or fine-tuning that works for you.
Yeah, and those are the types of connections we see all the time. And I want to say, one of the things that we are tracking with body temperature and pulse are cortisol rhythms. So you get to see very clearly, if you've all seen that circadian rhythm graph, how cortisol begins to come up in the morning time, peak midday, and starts to gradually decline as the body prepares for rest and recovery. We'll start to see those similar patterns on food logs. So as in the beginning, we'll start to see a lot of fluctuation. As we begin to regulate things, we'll start to see the cortisol rhythms, and it always correlates with better sleep. So it's really a tool that you have at your disposal to be able to use to regulate your sleep patterns if you so choose to. But it's very, very clear in those readings what's happening within cortisol throughout the day.
Right.
Yeah. And if you start to see elevations at night, typically 9 times out of 10, we're going to see sleep disturbances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think sleep is a very deep-rooted issue. You know what I mean? What you change isn't going to happen overnight. You're not going to get results overnight. Some people will. You have to realize that the patterns that you've developed have taken a while to develop within your nervous system. So it's going to take time to unwind.
Just like with anything in your thyroid, anything that relates to that hormonal system, the hypothalamus, the pituitary, the adrenal, the gut, the thyroid, all of that entire system is driven through those fluctuations.
Yeah.
So I think, again, that's why it takes time, is we're unraveling neurological adaptations to what's happened in the system, or to the system. So food frequency, food choices, more frequency throughout the day is number one in getting your sleep patterns regulated. So you've got to begin to regulate your blood sugar. Otherwise, we know with inability to regulate the blood sugar, pulls the body into compensation, begins elevating stress hormones, which is how we get, if you were to look at a graph chart, you see a lot of zigzagging happening because of those inconsistencies.
And a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm taking tryptophan, it works. I don't need to do that. Well, really what you're doing is you're forcing your body into sleep, but you're not getting deep sleep because your body is such in an excited state. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, you're doing it at the expense of damaging your metabolism even more. It's kind of like women that have night sweats and they go see their doctor and their doctor gives them the pill. What you're really doing is you're pushing them over the cliff and shutting their metabolism you're shutting the metabolism off by using the pill, that it completely eliminates the sweats and it completely eliminates everything. It pushes them so hypo they can't even feel the way they're supposed to feel or react. Their body can't react how it's supposed to react. So that's why we're not a fan of these things, because you're not getting restorative sleep. You're just closing your eyes and getting sleep, but it's really not that beneficial. So we'll talk about stress and sleep next, but we do have a question. As always, even when I know gets enhanced and reminded, you are smart in your focus. Oh, thanks. Ingeborg. Is that how you pronounce it?
Just give us a thumbs up.
Just give us a thumbs up. Darlene says, in time when my body's metabolism heals, someone eating 6 times a day, do you see that sometimes folks change and eat 5 or 4 meals per day? Yeah, I think your body is always going to shift. It's going to ebb and flow. Why? We have seasons, we have stress, we have healing, aging, we have activity level, babies. So what someone needs is going to shift.
Yes, but as you gain more stability physiologically and your ability to be able to store energy and produce energy becomes more efficient, you will be able to go longer periods of time without eating. So that's one of those transitional phases that you may have heard us talk about over, in one of our discussions somewhere.
Or maybe that 6 meal turns into a small snack or something like that. But really what you're doing is you're still getting the same calories or ratios of nutrients. You're just cutting a meal. At the same time, we've actually seen people's, obviously, their grams and their ratios and calories shift as they heal.
Oh, yeah.
But that takes time and
but
a lot of consistency.
Keep in mind that even the 4 to 5 or 6 times a day, that's going to change per day depending upon your activity.
Right.
So it's always going to be shifting, and that's where you have to tune in how one day is different from the other, and that's going to shift your energy needs. Cycling, follicular ovulation, luteal, that's going to change your energy needs. It's all going to shift. The more awareness you create, it sounds like a lot, it's a little overwhelming. But the more awareness you create, it just becomes second nature.
Yeah, and that's the goal. Someone had a question about melatonin. We're not fans of melatonin or tryptophan because from our standpoint, what we do see from a physiological perspective, and this is just science, it's not stuff we're making up, that converts to serotonin. And serotonin, number one, is excitatory to the nervous system, so you're pushing it back up. And at the same time, it's very inhibitory to oxidative metabolism, which is how your cells use glucose, oxygen, and thyroid, right? So you're not influencing your cells or your thyroid by using it. You're actually inhibiting them more, right? And you're affecting your own rhythms. So we're not fans of it. I know people say, well, it works for me. Well, it might work for you to sleep, but on a physiological level, it's not working for you. It's actually working against you. Yeah. So that's kind of our take on that. So stress and sleep. Of course, most people know stress affects sleep. But how? No, we just talked about food. That's the easiest way, I think, to begin to regulate our stress because most people don't even know what stress is. They don't even know what's stressing them, right? But they can't sleep. And I think the first thing, and you'd probably agree with this, is just kind of sit down and take time to record how you feel throughout the day to become more aware of what possibly could be stressing you. So a lot of people think on their log they're just looking at their food, but they're looking at their whole day, and that's what we try to teach people. So when a meal doesn't work, or your temp drops, or you don't feel good, we don't just look at the food. Yes, we look at the food. When did you eat prior? How long did you eat prior? What did you eat prior? What were your ratios in grams, calories, etc.? But what was happening around that time of the day? What was your emotional status? How did you feel? Were you going through something stressful with your kids? How was work, etc., etc.? Because that's going to have a larger influence on your metabolism than food, right? So I think getting that baseline is really important to figure out, like, really what is creating that excitement within my nervous system throughout the day, essentially what is stressing me out physiologically.
And creating a little bit more of a plan around nighttime. You know, how do you want to set yourself up? How do you want to go out of this day and into a new day? You know, I think for a lot of people, even journaling, because a lot of people's mind just goes crazy. They're so excited. Their mind's just racing all night long. So sometimes even doing things like journaling just to get it out on paper, get it out of your body so that you can move into a day without carrying all that heaviness with you, I think can be a powerful tool. Do you want to talk about waking up mid-morning, or like between 1 and 3, what that is with respect to hypothyroidism and energy?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. We're kind of taking a couple steps back.
Yeah.
Because I think some people will wake up mid-morning or in the middle of the night between 1 and 3, and again, what you're experiencing is an adrenaline rush. Adrenaline naturally peaks, but as we know, and this is where food frequency during the day is so important, and because we're trying to interrupt the system by giving it what it needs, so the body has the energy to continue to fuel.
And this is part of stress and sleep.
It is part of it. Kind of like adding kindling to the fire to keep that fire burn. But as we go to sleep into the longest period of fasting, now keep in mind, most people we're working with cannot store energy for up to 3 hours, even 3 hours, let alone 6, 7, 8. So the initial state is to start regulating throughout the day, but then we have this long period of fasting where people will still wake up at night, and that's because of that inability for the liver to store glycogen and regulate your blood sugar throughout the nighttime.
And this is important because I think a lot of people say, well, I wake up at this time so I have a liver issue, and they try to correlate it to Chinese medicine, which there is no correlation. Or I wake up at this time so I have a parasite. And personally, in 18 years, I've never seen that correlation. What we do know is this. When you drink alcohol or you don't regulate your blood sugar, you eat a low-carb diet, you do intermittent fasting, you're setting yourself up for waking up at night. I haven't worked with one person that's done keto, that's done low carb, that's done anything like that hasn't come to me, like a new client I started with yesterday that has low testosterone. I have many that have crappy sleep patterns and digestive issues because going on low carb, right? You're stimulating the stress reaction. You're supporting your body being in that excited state, and that's why you can't sleep. Because our body primarily uses glucose in the cells or stores it in the liver for energy production, right? And that in itself balances out the autonomic nervous system, because now we don't have to go into the stress state, release adrenaline, right, which is going to wake us up, or cortisol to break down our own tissues. That's being in a stress state. But when we eat food regularly throughout the day, like Jeannie said, what we're doing is we're down-regulating that stress response. We're taking the burden off the adrenals, and we're not going to end up in adrenal fatigue, which is just chronic blood sugars regulation. I just wanted to kind of
put a little insight into why that's happening, because of those inabilities to store and regulate blood sugar throughout the night. And then again,
and I think it's important because you don't want to wake up and eat. You don't want to do well, I'm going to wake up and have a meal and get caught into that cycle. You know, I think you would agree with this. I think part of it is just rolling with the punches and realizing that you're healing. And when we're healing, it's not all roses and unicorns and sprinkles. And that there are some things that happen we're not comfortable with. Some people can benefit with a small glass of orange juice, salt, and gelatin on their nightstand. So if they do wake up consistently, they can just take a sip, not chug the whole thing, to maybe quiet down that excitement, regulate their blood sugar and adrenaline with the salt and the sugar that's in the OJ and the salt that you're taking in. That can be beneficial, but it's not something you want to get wrapped up in and you're using for years and years and years and years. The goal is to get away from that, to reteach your body to store glycogen so you can go through the night and you can eat 5 meals a day, right? Because initially we are using food as a supplement to regulate our blood sugar in an autonomic nervous system. And the more we do that consistently, we reteach the system how to work appropriately, and we begin to fill our stores with nutrients, vitamins, minerals, etc. Does fasting help your metabolism? No. We're not fans of fasting at all. It's a one-way ticket to affecting cellular respiration, because you're pushing your body into that stress response, right? Because our cells need energy, and they're going to do it any way they can. If you're not taking in energy, you're going to break your body down, which is catabolic. I think there was another question. Merci, no problem, my friend.
What was that question before?
That's what I was wondering, Jeannie, and to think what you need per day. I don't know. So let's move on a little bit, and then we'll get to some of these other questions, which are great questions. So I think just wrapping up the whole stress and sleep thing.
Yeah, I think obviously anytime you're trying to get sleep, you have to be aware of what's creating your stresses and find some tools, again, that are going to help
That's the biggest thing.
Begin to process whatever's happening for you, work on whatever
makes you happy and feel
you.
Energized. Like, the biggest thing I always say is people write their hobbies on our assessment forms, but they don't do any of them. I like to fish. I like to kayak. I like to go biking. I like to meditate. I like to read books. I like to paint. Whatever it may be, but they don't do any of it. That's the me time. Think about it. That is the me time, or the I time. You have to build the I, right, and build and resource yourself so you can have a we, which is a relationship on all, or a family, or a business. Without the I, those things don't work appropriately. So resourcing yourself.
But I also want to say that that's a challenging exploration for some people. And I asked this to a client yesterday. I asked her what it is she needed for herself. And I'll never forget the first time somebody asked that for me, and I wasn't able to answer the question. So if you don't know, don't let it freak you out, but start to explore it and see what you come up with. Because then she emailed me later on, and she's like, had an aha moment. So I think that, initially it can be a little scary, and oh my God, what do I like? Because a lot of you out there, not everybody, we tend to get lost. We tend to get a little bit lost, and we're not really sure. So I just kind of want to put that out there, because I know I have those conversations with a lot of women, and it's a tough one. It can be a tough one.
Right. The next thing is breathing and regulating autonomic nervous system balance. And I think this is a tool. If you think about with our food, what we're really trying to do is regulate mitochondrial respiration. Big word. How our cells breathe, how they utilize thyroid hormone, sugar, and minerals to produce energy, which is CO2, ATP, and water. And we breathe in order to bring oxygen to the cell to keep that feedback mechanism moving. The problem is what? Most people are in a hypervigilant state all the time because they're in that excited stress state. That puts us into a place of breathing incorrectly. We mouth breathe. We breathe with our chest. We're blowing off a lot of CO2. So now we can't get oxygen to our cells. So now we become less metabolic and more in a heightened hypervigilant state. It just perpetuates that, because in a sense what we're doing is we're hyperventilating, right? This is most of our population. So structure governs function. Our nose is meant for breathing. That's why it has little hairs. It helps us filter the air, warm the air, humidify the air. And that's how we're supposed to breathe. We're supposed to breathe through our nose. So anytime you breathe through your mouth, you're going into a different energy system. And this system essentially is a stress state, and we should be able to bounce back. If you watch most people, they're breathing through their mouth. They're sitting at their desk doing work like this. If you watch people and they exercise, the second they start moving, their mouth opens, right? So what does that tell us? That most of the things people are doing are pushing them into this survival mode stress state.
And just speaking to this question, I did have a client on the table the other day doing cranial work with her and talking about the whole respiratory system and cellular system. But she was stuck in an exhale. Oh, no, I'm sorry. She was stuck in an inhale and had not exhaled at all. And the only reason I bring this up is because when we are thinking about fluidity, and this person had a question about the CNS and the dura mater and whatnot, and even more importantly, what's within that dura mater, and creating more balance there, I think contributes tremendously, because, again, she slept like a baby that night, hadn't slept in days, but just that ability to exhale, to get fluidity, movement in the system, very, very powerful.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, to answer your question, my friend, we've talked a lot. Yeah, I still work with people, and when people have sleep issues, which is a lot of my clients, I do believe that when I work with them, whether I work on the CNS, yes, working on the dura mater, increasing, for me it's 100%. Like really just increasing that overall vitality and they're just the movement between, you know.
Well, you're in direct relationship with it.
So at the same time, I've also realized that they sleep better that night, but it's not continuous because the foundation isn't there. So as much as I love osteopathy, I feel that if someone's coming in and they're living in such a heightened excited state and they're not eating because they're living a crazy life and they get treated by you, in a sense, what we're doing is enabling them. They can't, it's almost like other types of work. They can't sleep, right, because of how they live. They come see us, we do work, and they sleep better. But then they can't sleep again. So what we like to do is say, okay, yes, we can work with you. We can regulate your dura, right? We can work with vitality in the system. We can work with the CNS. We can do a lot of auto-regulation, which I like doing with people, and pumping and things like that. But at the same time, that can only stick or work, in my opinion, if the foundation is there. And that's how we are living, how we are eating, and how we are breathing. Because we do that so much during the day, especially breathing, right? And if we learn to breathe through the nose, that's the first thing. Everyone wants to know how to do all these crazy exercises to influence our physiology with breathing. The most important thing is, how do we learn just to breathe through our nose throughout the day? When we're sitting here, when we're moving, when we're exercising. Let breath be your guide, because the more you breathe through your nose, the more you're going to quiet the excitement in the system, and you're going to sleep better. And it's just another support mechanism for sleep along with food.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We got to watch our time. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I do believe breathing has a real big effect. I think a lot of people try to move too fast within it and do different holds. I think the biggest recommendation I have for people is this. You can focus on influencing your physiology later with breathing. You can work on activating your diaphragm later with breathing. For me, the first thing is learning to breathe through your nose and get comfortable, right? And be able to slow your breath down on the inhale and the exhale. So that's your first step, is in the morning in bed, breathe through your nose. During the day, breathe through your nose. At night when you get into bed, breathe through your nose. That's the fastest way to rewire the system, because breathing is the remote control to the brain. Lastly, other modalities to help with sleep. Of course, we've talked about these in length before. Like sometimes for people, Epsom salt baths work. Other people, that doesn't work for me. Other people, taking a cold shower works. That would be me. And really working on my breathing at night. For other people, it's
having a snack closer to bedtime.
That's something we really recommend.
Something we always recommend. Like we were talking about some of the de-stressors, whether it be massage, going for a walk, just doing something in your day that helps bring you down a little bit more and ground you a little bit more, I think is going to be very helpful.
I also think...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think sometimes using other modalities like biodynamic cranial psychotherapy, or going to see someone that does osteopathic manual therapy, or someone that can, work with the system in a way that's very regulating, auto-regulating, could be very beneficial to help people, break that cycle, to get some good sleeps, to get the ball rolling.
A lot of people don't know how to self-regulate their nervous system. They were never taught that. So those can be really powerful tools to bring you, again, into relationship with it. And what does that feel like? Because some of us have never felt it. So that's, again, definitely very powerful. Some other type of things, again, these are simple things. It's not rocket science, but it's turning the TV off, unplugging, keeping, sitting down and reading a good book, writing in a journal. These are all things that are going to help you rest better. Doing some light stretching, doing a yoga flow, that's all breath work. Really coming into your body in any way that you can and out of your head is probably the most powerful tool in helping prepare you for a restful night.
I think for most people in our society today, it seems so simple and people have heard it a million times. But, if you do have sleep issues, it's, not watching TV close to bed, or not watching something that's so excited, whether it's murder or death or craziness, or watching the news, and get off your phone and get off your computer in bed. I can't tell you how many people I talk to that have sleep issues, and they're on their phone in bed, and then they sleep, and they can't sleep. They wake up, they can't go back to bed, so they get on their computer and watch a movie. They get on their phone. That's not going to help you sleep.
Have you ever tried doing? I tried doing that one time, and it was like.
Yeah. I couldn't even see my phone.
So bad. But I also want to say, for people who don't get to bed until 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, 1:30, they really have struggles. Don't try to just say, hey, I'm going to go to bed at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. That's never going to work. Again, we talked about this a little bit earlier as far as rewiring the system. Take it in 15-minute increments. Try to slice that off. Try to find those tools that work for you. Regulate your blood sugar during the day. Those are things that you're really going to find more helpful in the long term.
Right.
That are going to stick.
To wrap it up, if you have any more questions, definitely post them below. To wrap it up, I think the biggest thing is this. To really create awareness and understand what is influencing you throughout the day, and use the tools that vibrate with you, whether it's breathing, whatever, to help you regulate those stresses that you become aware of. At the same time, sit down and think about how you're living and how you're eating, because that's the foundation for how you're going to sleep. And it sounds so complex, but honestly, it's really simple, and if you're consistent with it over time, you're going to sleep. I've always had, not sleep issues, but I've always been the type that would wake up 2 or 3 times during the night. I'd always fall back to sleep, but I'd always wake up. And for me, that's why I say sleep is the biggest indicator, because with our, nutrition that we teach, it's been the biggest indicator for me to be able to go to bed and not lay there for an hour and then, fall asleep and wake up a couple times during the night, where now I get in bed and fall asleep and then wake up in the morning and go, wow, I can't believe it's the morning already. So I really get in that deep sleep.
Yeah.
We have one more question from Janet. This isn't a sleep question. It's about breathing. How do you remember to breathe when you are having a stressful day? I'm noticing when I get busy and start on emails in the morning, I feel like I'm done. I can exhale. Yeah, well, you answered your own question. The first thing is you shouldn't get to emails first thing in the morning, right? Because what you just learned is that is stressful for your system. You need to actually eat some food and sit down after. Take 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes to breathe.
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Breathe through your nose, get into your system. And then when you're answering emails, focus on breathing through the system. right? And maybe split up answering those emails throughout the day. But if you know that's a stressor for you, you have to set up your day and your environment to support that, so it's not so much of a stress. We get a lot of emails from clients. I used to get stressed because I get to email it right away. Now I spread it out over 2 days, right? What I tell them is not going to make or break their progress.
But to answer your question, creating new habits doesn't happen overnight.
No.
You need to actually find some time. I mean, I have clients having Post-its up. I've got clients setting alarms as reminders to help them create a new habit. So again, if you're finding certain things stress you out, reassess how you're doing that and see if you can do it in a different way that's going to set you up for greater success. But also be gentle with yourself in your expectations for how soon that should happen, and create again something around that's going to help you to remember to do that, because you will get wrapped up in your day. That's how you've been doing it for so long. So now to rewind that and do it differently,
just put a little post on your computer.
It's going to be a very conscious effort until it becomes more regular.
Yeah.
Or just normal.
I mean, when I started working with my breathing, it was really hard to breathe through my nose. It was really hard to breathe in. It was really hard to breathe out. And it was stressful. So all I did was say, every day in the morning for 5 minutes in bed, every day at midday when I'm at my computer at 12 noon, and every night when I get into bed, I'm going to just practice nose breathing. Whatever happens during the day happens during the day. I don't care. At those 3 times, I'm just going to work with breathing through my nose for 5 minutes, and that's it. And that ball just keeps rolling and growing and growing and growing until you turn that automatic into a manual, right? So it's that simple. So we're going to wrap it up now, my friends. If you have any other questions, or if there is questions we didn't get to, we will. If you have any other questions, put them in the comment. We will definitely get to them. Don't forget, we are here every single Thursday at 12 p.m. Pacific Coast time. We will see you next week, and have a great week.
Have a great week.